How my family friends faked my death, and now they want me to remain dead. To imagine that my life would change forever was weird, and to think it would alter on a day like this was unimaginable. The day started just like any other. I received a WhatsApp call from my brother whilst I was already packed and ready to head off to work. The call seemed important, a lot more serious than usual, so I set my coffee mug to the side for later. It was Jack, my brother, and the way he spoke petrified me as he seemed panicked and anxious, saying things like, "You need to get out of there now." "Jack, what's going on?" I questioned, and he continued by telling me that there was no time to explain. "Just trust me, go to the train station and take the first train out of town. Whatever you do, don't go to your car, don't call anyone. I promise I will tell you everything later." His instructions made no sense as I felt like he was speaking a different language than I was, but no other language was known to me. Fear was clenching at my stomach, and there was no way I could shake that off using any means possible. Jack was the one brother I always relied on to be calm and to speak in a placid manner, so I always panicked a lot less due to how I thought he would handle the entire situation. However, the tone in which Jack was speaking to me left me overwhelmed with a shiver running down my spine. For no reason at all, I decided my judgment was not to be trusted, so after grabbing the bag that was initially ready to be taken to work instead, I dashed through the door. To imagine my heart was pounding was an understatement. Upon my arrival at the train station, it was Jack waiting for me, looking peculiar. I have never seen him in this state before. He handed me a train ticket before hugging me very tightly. "You need to listen," he exclaimed. "You have to vanish. Your life depends on it." "Jack, what the hell is going on?" I snapped while trying to get a good look at him. "Why should I vanish?" Looking around quite nervously, as if someone was surveilling us, he said, "I cannot explain everything right now. You need to go now, and trust me, I will get in touch with you when I can." Confused and terrified, I tried to reason, but he walked away from me. Not knowing what was going on or where I was headed, I boarded the train. When the train left the station, I felt like I was leaving my life behind. There are interesting stories that you can watch and listen to, but only if you have subscribed to us. If you have not, well, you'll never see such stories again. My life changed beyond recognition. Jack did everything. I was given a new name, and he got me a flat in my new city. Everything was set up so that no one could find me. He told me that I was to go off the grid as much as I could, and there was no reason for me to have anyone from my past. Once in a while, Jack would call from an anonymous number. He would always tell me to stay calm and things were being worked on. He never really gave context to why my life was at risk or why I had to go off the grid. There were questions I had and answers I desperately sought, but Jack would just repeat, "For your safety." And then one day, I came across something shocking. An online article, a news report to be specific, about my death. The gist of the story was that I had passed away from a terrible car crash. I had supposedly driven off a bridge, and the car was said to be fished out from the river. A funeral was conducted for me, my family exed and friends grieved. It's one thing to die, but to read about it is eerily unbelievable. I was boiling with rage. My family had gone so far as to set up my death, and this whole thing was plotted without my knowledge. I wanted to scream loudly so that everyone knew I was alive and watching, but I could not do any of that. Jack's words replayed in my head. "Your life depends on it." Jack came to see me after a couple of months, and I was not letting him leave without him giving me some proper answers. "Why did you do this?" I shouted at the top of my lungs, allowing every ounce of anger and confusion I had to flow out. Faking my death was not the best choice, if I am being honest. Jack rubbed his face before replying me and let out a heavy sigh like he was carrying the whole weight of the world on his shoulder. "For God's sake, you were being targeted," he stated softly. Jack continued, "You were getting in way too deep for your own good. Dangerous people were aware." I tried to think deeply since my head was spinning over Jack's claims, but then it made sense. I had single-handedly tried to uncover corruption of a huge corporation which had worldwide recognition. The gravity of it all was hair-raising. "Are you saying you mean the investigation?" I counter-questioned Jack, feeling confused. He nodded. "You were supposedly getting too close to the truth. We knew they'd come after you. The only way to keep you safe was to make them believe you had died." In my disbelief, I was shocked to learn that they had planned on executing me. It is hard for me to fathom the lengths this individual prepared in order to let me live, especially after everything I researched. Living like a ghost while being disconnected from everything and everyone I cared for is a truly horrifying notion. "Why didn't you tell me?" I questioned, anger and betrayal roaring within me. "What gave you, or anyone for that matter, the authority to make this decision for me?" "Because you would have fought us," Jack said, his eyes full of sorrow. "You would have continued searching for the truth, and they would have killed you. This was the only way I had to try and keep you safe." "Then this is for your own good," I said with nausea. "So what now?" I asked bitterly. "Do I just stay dead forever?" Jack contemplated, and that's when I started understanding. He hadn't come just to tell me that I could go back. He had come to ensure that I remained hidden. Along with, they still have eyes everywhere. If they find out you're still alive, it's not safe for you to return, Jack said slowly. So that's it. I interrupted him, raising my voice to emphasize my disbelief. I have to sacrifice my life, my friends, and my future, all for some shadowy threat? That is no life to live. It's the only life you have, Jack said while his voice trembled. I'm sorry, but it is the truth. Days after Jack's visit, I was engulfed with this sense of dread and fury that I just couldn't get rid of. I had to resign myself to the fact that I would have to stay hidden for the rest of my life, watching as the people that caused my misery carried on with their lives. This was the decision my family made for me, and I was now expected to stick to it. That thought was unbearable. I could not stay in a place where I was so terrified of the world around me that I could do nothing. Somewhere deep down, I felt like I owed it to myself to discover what was the extent of the danger I was in and why my family had gone to such extreme lengths. If this was how I chose to live my life, then I deserved to know everything. I had to do this very carefully, and I had to do it quickly. Who knew the extent of how severely I could be monitored? Little by little, every tiny detail started putting the puzzle together. All I needed was some information and the wonderful sleuthing skills I exhibited. Trying to uncover information without leaving a digital trace is extremely difficult. I had to plan everything meticulously, but the movements I did made the difference. The corporation I was looking into had a lot more insidious things going on than what came to my attention. They were involved in money laundering, black market operations, and even had ties to organized criminal groups. They had people in power and would do everything to stay protected. And any person that got close to exposing them just vanished. My family didn't just go into hiding to fake my death out of sheer paranoia. They did it because the danger was very much plausible. They had devoted everything to ensure my safety and, in turn, stripped away my freedom to choose. They caged me into a life that was never mine, one created at the expense of their comfort. This can't be the solution, I told myself in defiance. I didn't want to accept that the only way to stay safe was if I were to disappear. If the threat was real, then it was one I was going to face on my terms. Thus, I started contacting people from the life I used to live. Those I trusted, who were good at information gathering or had some sort of experience in security. What I needed were people I could count on to help me face the perilous uncertainty I knew lay ahead of me. From my contacts, I found out that the corporation not only still existed, but was extremely virulent as well. They had moved on from me assuming I was dead, but their operations were broadening. Not only had I uncovered them, they were wrapped up in things far worse. This fact made me all the more resolute. My family was justified in being concerned for my safety, but they were delusional if they thought I could turn a blind eye to the atrocities these people were committing and simply live in peace. I made the decision that it was time to confront my family. They had to know that I was fed up of hiding. If my death was indeed faked as a protective measure, then they had to get it through their heads that I couldn't remain in a concealed state forever. They seemed shocked when their son shows up without notice. My mother burst into tears and grabbed me tightly, as though afraid I would vanish again. My father stood there pale and trembling. It seems they were under the impression that I would abide by their decision to accept my so-called death. Why are you here? It's not safe. My father asked, clearly frightened and struggling to keep his voice calm. Explain, please. I know why you did what you did, but this is my life, I responded firmly. I have to make my own choices. I have to fight back. My mother disagreed, shaking her head with a quivering, emotionless face. They'll find you. They'll kill you. Maybe, I said quietly. But why are they so dangerous? If it's like the way I think, then they need to be stopped. Not too long after, Jack arrived, having been told by my parents. He commandingly said, "You are making a mistake," while staring at me with disappointment. "You need to understand how powerful they really are." "Then help me," I tried, bringing forth my point. "You have been in the shadows ever since trying to protect me. I need your help, but not them because they are the ones who need to be brought down." I knew I wasn't going to see eye to eye with them, but what enraged them was the fact that I was determined not to budge. I am fed up with these people hiding behind the curtains, ready to pull the strings to control my life while keeping their identity secret. Should they decide to pursue me, they were going to be exposed for all of the horrendous actions they committed. We started the process of collecting intel with Jack's assistance. We contacted journalists, law enforcement officials, and whistleblowers willing to risk their services to uncover the deeply embedded corruption within the company. This was a risky endeavor that put everyone in the crosshairs, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt alive. I was taking the reins of my life, bit by bit. The corporation was not going to fall without a fight. There were threats, close calls, and a constant feeling that they would attempt to crush us like the bugs we were. Nonetheless, the more we fought, the more cracks began to show. People within the organization started turning against each other, feverishly fighting for self-preservation against the crimes that they were forced to accept responsibility for. In the end, the truth emerged in all its grotesque glory. This was not only a corporate scandal, but a betrayal that had been hidden away for so long. The media clung to every morsel. every piece of information available, and all their calculations and analysis screamed in unison. This corporation had committed unimaginable atrocities, exhibits of which were visible on their walls. The general population was disgusted, repulsed, and angered at how an organization can go to such lengths. The organization came crashing down with its own structures, and blood started pouring from the harangue's wounds. This rat is bound to pay for this betray, along with all the rest of them. Nevertheless, it was a harsh pain to bear. Knowing how devastating a grave trauma the people faced shed a sense of remorse in me as well. Even more soaking and even more sensitive are the layers of grief this deviant soul has wrapped around my shackled limbs. From the fight, I emerged undefeated, whipping the fears that once bound me like a ghost. As a gesture of goodwill, my family who made the decision to detach themselves from the demon resources and bear the grueling scorn simply stood there, supporting my decision to resist. Gradually, I found my version of life snoozing at the end of the tunnel, waiting for me to rouse it. And as I walk, the shadows approach me with hate, reminiscence of the pain I buried along. I am no longer a figure entwined in someone else's pain, in someone else's game. Rather, I am the victim cradling the liking who decided to smother themselves in the light, trapping the devil I transcend into a nightmare. Now, the world understood what had been done in secrecy, and although the conflict still raged on, I was prepared to put up a fight. The truth was, I was very much alive. I was far from dead, and I was determined to remain in this world.